5:11 a.m., Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Below San Francisco. Far below San Francisco, the Pacific Plate grinds against the North American Plate. It rubs harder than it ever has. The two plates slip and twist. Dirt and rock stir and tumble. In an instant, 375,000 square miles shake violently. All over the world, there are machines that measure earthquakes. Their needles start to wag crazily. In those days, scientists measured earthquakes in a different way. Today, we use the Richter scale. The Great Earthquake was 8.25 by modern standards. The surface rips open for almost 290 miles, from Los Angeles in the south to Oregon in the north and east to Nevada. Cliffs fall into the ocean, hills crumble into valleys. Mountains crack, rivers twist, ancient trees topple and crash. But San Francisco is at the center of the destruction. It sits on the bullseye of a target. In its houses, almost 343,000 people lie sleeping or are just waking. It is as if more than 18 million sticks of dynamite explode beneath them. That is more force than the atom bomb that struck Hiroshima. This is the earthquake of 1906, when the earth shook so terribly. 5:12 a.m., Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Travis household, Sacramento Street area. Sawyer has been restless the whole evening. He whimpers all the time. He keeps waking his master. Henry does not sleep well either. It is twilight, just before dawn. Sawyer lets out a howl. Henry sits up and tries to calm his pet. Everything's all right, boy. Around him is the same boring room. The same bureau, the same bookcase, the same desk. Then he sees the gleam of his new roller skates. They are hanging on the back of a chair. Perhaps not everything is boring. He can hardly wait to go skating. Suddenly, Henry hears a low rumbling. It sounds like a train coming. His books bounce on the shelves as if they're alive. Henry has been through earthquakes before. He is not worried. The shaking stops for a moment. He takes a breath. The rumbling starts again. The bookcase tilts back and forth. The books fall. Thud, thud, thud. Henry's heavy oak bed hops with them. It skips like a grasshopper. He holds his dog tight. More books spill out of the bookcase. The chest of drawers dances a jig. The walls groan. The wooden floor ripples like waves of an ocean. Windows rattle, doors thump in their frames. The whole house shakes like Sawyer when he has an itch. Plates crash in the kitchen below. Pictures and then plaster drop from the wall. Old boards show through the gaps. Henry coughs in the growing cloud of dust. And still the shaking goes on. His bed and all his furniture circle in a slow waltz around the room. Then the window shatters. The shade flies up with a flap. The other houses in the neighborhood jerk about. Immediately across the street, the Smith's house falls apart. Bricks rain on the ground. Dust rises and hides the street. From within the cloud, Henry hears screams. His father bangs at his door. "Henry, Henry, are you all right?" he calls from the hallway. "Yes, how about you and Mama?" Henry asks. He stumbles out of bed. The floor shakes so much that he cannot stand. He crawls to the door. "We're fine, darling," his mother says. Henry tries to open his door, but it won't budge. The door is now crooked in the frame. "It's jammed," he says. "Don't worry," promises his father. I'll get you out. He hears another rumble. There is a crash above him. He dodges when a chunk of ceiling falls. Bricks shower down. They smash against the floor. Boards splinter and break. 5:12 a.m. Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Chin and Ah Sing's tenement, Chinatown. Chin is pouring water from a pitcher into a bowl. He needs to wash up. Then they will catch a cable car to Henry's house to cook breakfast for the Travises. Suddenly, everything trembles. The bowl creeps across the table. Then even the table crawls away. Chin spills water everywhere. You can write your mother about your first earthquake, his father says unworriedly. The floor rolls under them like a wooden sea. The bowl slips over the edge and crashes. Boxes tumble from the stack. Their possessions scatter across the boards. Chin and his father drop to their knees. Ah Sing tries to sound brave. The Earth Dragon must be scratching, he laughs. Chin tries to be just as fearless. When the room stills, he tries to joke like his father. He must really have an itch. Before his father can answer, the trembling begins again. Chin waits for it to stop, but it goes on and on. The tenement creaks and groans like an old giant. Their bed and bureau prowl like hungry animals.
That's the time
Ah Sing crawls over. He puts his arms around Chin. Don't be scared, he says. Ah Sing's voice sounds funny because he is shaking with the room. Beneath them, unseen timbers crack like sticks. The next instant, one side of the room tilts upward. They slide helplessly with all the furniture toward the opposite wall. Chin feels like a doll. Their belongings crash and thump as they pile up. His father forces him under the table. The tenement is falling, his father shouts. Walls crack and crumble. Windows shatter. Broken glass sprays like little daggers. Chin's stomach feels funny when the room itself drops. They bounce against the floor as it stops with a jerk. For a moment, they lie there. Their neighbors scream from the middle level. Ah Sing and Chin's room is crushing them. Then the floor twitches. It plunges again. There are more screams. This time, it is the ground level that is smashed. Their floor gives one final thump and stops. Dazed, Chin peeks out from beneath the table. He sees cracks. They spread like a crazy spider web around all the walls. Spurts of powdery plaster puff out. The walls crumble like paper. The ceiling drops down on them. 5:15 a.m. to 5:20 a.m. Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Underneath San Francisco. The earthquake makes the ground bounce up and down, twisting it back and forth like an old towel. Horses bolt into the street from firehouses. On Mission Street, cattle are being herded from the docks to the slaughter yard. They stampede in terror. They trample and gore a man. 1/6 of the city is on landfill. Dirt, rock, and debris have been dumped along the shore of the bay and into the creeks and ponds. Homes and apartments and stores have been built on top. Valencia Street was constructed this way. The earthquake tosses water from deep underground and mixes it with the landfill. The ground stops being solid then. That is called liquefaction. The soil becomes like quicksand and sucks entire houses down. That happens on Valencia Street. Even on more solid ground, buildings collapse like houses of cards. Thousands of people are trapped all over the city. 5:20 a.m. Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Chin and Ah Sing's tenement, Chinatown. Chin cannot see. He cannot move. He can barely breathe. In the darkness, he hears his father cough. "Are you all right, Chin?" His father is holding him tight. Chin tries to answer, but dust fills his mouth and throat, so he simply nods. Since his father can't see him, Chin squeezes his arm. Then he shifts around so he can raise one hand. He can feel the tabletop, but its legs have collapsed. Fallen pieces of ceiling and wall have turned the space into a tiny cave. His father pushes at the wreckage around him. "It won't budge," he grunts. Chin shoves with him. "The whole ceiling fell on us." If his father hadn't pulled him under the table, he would have been crushed. But now they are buried alive. Overhead, they hear footsteps. "The Earth Dragon's mad," a man screeches in fear. "Here," cries Ah Sing. "Help us," Chin yells too. From nearby, someone hollers, "Fire!" The footsteps run away. Chin and his father shout until they are hoarse. No one hears them, though. Trapped under the rubble, they will be buried alive. "We'll have to rescue ourselves," his father says. "Try to find a loose section." They squirm and wriggle. There is a big slab of plaster near Chin's head. He gropes with his hands until they feel the plaster. Powdery chunks crumble into his hands. He hears his father digging. Chin claws at the broken boards and plaster. Dust chokes their noses and throats. Still, they scrabble away like wild animals. 5:20 a.m. Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Travis household, Sacramento Street area. Henry coughs in the swirling dust. Chimney bricks lie in heaps around him. A wall has disappeared. He can see right into his parents' bedroom, or what was their bedroom. It is gone now. So is the big chimney. Most of it toppled into their room. Their floor has given way under the weight and crashed below. His father pounds at the door. "Henry, are you all right?" He covers his mouth against the scented dust. All his mother's perfume bottles have broken. The house creaks and groans ominously. Sawyer yips in fear. "Help me," begs Henry. His father's voice calms him. "We'll get you out, Henry. I'm going to get a crowbar. You dress in the meantime." Henry obediently puts on his clothes. Though the house is still trembling, dressing gives him something to do. Then he scoops up Sawyer. Henry clutches his pet. The crowbar scrapes at the doorframe. With a crack of wood, the door splinters and swings open. Henry sees his father, his nightshirt stuffed into his trousers. His mother stands behind his father. Her usually tidy hair is all tangled. She is wearing her silk shawl over her nightgown. His father hugs him. "Thank heaven you're all right." His mother hugs him too. Then she cleans his face with her shawl. "You're all dusty." "So are you," Henry laughs with relief. They look through the hole in the wall. "Yes, that could have been us in the next room," says his father. "If the chimney had fallen the other way, it could have crushed you," his mother says. The house rumbles dangerously as they go downstairs. Henry carries Sawyer in his arms. The stairs sway under his feet. He hardly dares to breathe. Their house seems as if it will fall apart at any moment. "Please hold together," he prays silently. Mr. Travis pauses by the living room. Mrs. Travis gives a cry when she sees it. Grandmother's piano has disappeared under a pile of bricks, board, and plaster. Then she squares her shoulders. At least we're alive, she says. That's the important thing. His father winds the little crank on their telephone on the hallway wall. Hello, operator? Hello? Hello? He shouts into the mouthpiece. Finally, he hangs up the receiver. The lines must be down. The front door is jammed too. His father pries at it with his crowbar. Sawyer barks from Henry's arms, urging Mr. Travis to hurry. At last, the door cracks off its hinges. Mr. Travis tugs the door open. They freeze in the doorway. Across the street, the front of the Smiths' house has crumbled onto the street. However, the rooms are still intact. Trapped on the second floor, the Smiths are stunned. They stand stiffly, like Henry's cousin's dolls in their toy house. An elderly couple, the Rossies, aren't so lucky. Their frame house down the block has collapsed on top of them. The whole street has split open. The cable car tracks have been twisted into strange shapes like shining wire. Some houses tilt at odd angles. They look as if they're peering over someone's shoulder. The pipes under the street have broken. Water gushes out like a fountain. Henry squeezes his eyes shut, but when he opens them again, the nightmare is still there. 6 a.m., Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. Chin and Ah Sing's tenement, Chinatown. Chin and his father dig in the darkness. He just hopes they are digging out of the rubble. His arms ache. He is covered with cuts and bruises. Dust chokes his mouth and throat. He feels as if he cannot even breathe. The earth has swallowed them up. Fire! People cry from above. He feels the thumping of running feet. He screams, "Let me out!" His father stops digging and wraps his arms around him. Don't panic. But fear twists inside Chin like a snake. He is so dry he cannot even cry. He just lies there. His fingernails are broken. His fingers are bleeding. They will never escape. He thinks about his mother. She won't know how they died. Suddenly, a breeze brushes his face like a soft hand. He smells fresh air. He forgets his pain. He forgets he is tired. He scrapes at the wreckage, but he can make only a narrow tunnel. It is barely big enough for him. "Don't worry about me," urges his father. "Save yourself." "I'll get help," Chin promises. "You're the important one," his father says. Chin crawls up through the passage, leaving his father behind. He would be scared to be left alone in the darkness. Until now, he didn't realize how brave his father is, or how much he loves Chin. Chin's hands break into the open. They flap frantically like the wings of a scared bird. "There's someone alive!" a man shouts in Chinese. All Chin can do is croak in answer. Above him, he hears feet. Someone starts to dig. Boards and bricks and plaster chunks thump to the side. Blindly, Chin helps his rescuer widen the hole. Strong hands grip his wrists. He feels himself rising until he sees Aquan's big, grinning face. "You're the biggest turnip that I ever pulled up," Aquan laughs in relief. He hauls Chin onto the rubble. Chin has only one thought on his mind. "Father," he gasps and points below him. As Aquan digs for his father, Chin manages to spit out the plaster dust. Then he tears at the debris too. "6 a.m. to 7 a.m., Wednesday, April 18th, 1906. the Travis's block, Sacramento Street area. Henry's father organizes the rescuers. First, they find a ladder and get the Smiths out of their home. Then, Mr. Travis leads everyone to the collapsed house. Sawyer jumps from Henry's arms. His dog barks excitedly at one spot. Henry crouches on the rubble. The Rossi's voices sound faint inside the ruins. Hurriedly, the rescuers lift away bricks and boards and plaster. Henry ties Sawyer to an iron fence with a rope. Then he helps his father and mother go through the wreckage. Everyone freezes when the ground starts to shake again. A brick falls from a nearby building. When the trembling stops, they look around nervously. Mr. Travis calms everyone. "We don't have time to be scared. There's too much to do." He ignores the danger and starts to dig. Henry thought that Marshall Earp was brave, but no outlaw was as deadly as nature. This is an even bigger battle, and his father doesn't back down. He joins his father. Mrs. Travis is right by him. Soon, everyone is digging again. These are ordinary people Henry sees every day. "They're acting just like heroes," he says to his mother. Mrs. Travis throws a brick to the side. "You can't judge a book by its cover," she says. Henry works until his back aches. He stands up for a moment to rest. To the south, a plume of black smoke rises high into the air and then curls like a question mark. "I think there's a fire." "Don't worry," says his father. "We have the best fire department in the world." "My house," one of the other neighbors cries. Smoke rises from his house 3 doors down. "The firemen will be here soon," Mr. Travis insists, but he sends Mr. Smith to the nearest firehouse. Then he splits the rescuers into groups. Some stay with him to dig through the rubble. The others form a bucket brigade. Water spills from the broken water main. That is the big pipe that supplies water to the houses on the street. They fill buckets with water. Then they pass each bucket along to the head of the line, who throws the water on the flames. Another line passes the empty pails back. The searchers finally find the Rossi's under their heavy oak bed. Though it's broken, it has protected them. "My father cut the tree down and made it himself," Mr. Rossi says. His arm is broken. His wife has a bad cut on her forehead. It bleeds a lot. Mr. Travis flags down a surrey. He asks the driver of the little carriage to take the couple to the hospital. "I'm busy," says the driver. "But they need a doctor," Mr. Travis argues. "Do I look like a charity?" the driver laughs. "We'll walk there on our own," Mr. Rossi says and stumbles to his feet. But Mr. Rossi is very old. Henry doubts he will get farther than a block. "I'll pay you to take them," his father says. The driver scowls. $50. "That's robbery," his father splutters. The driver shrugs. "I don't know what hospitals are still standing. I might have to drive a long way." Mr. Travis takes the money from his wallet. It is all he has in there. They help the Rossi's into the surrey and watch them drive away. "Trouble brings out the worst in some people," grumbles Mr. Travis. "Trouble brings out the best in people too," Mrs. Travis adds. She points at the bucket brigade.